Series live from Philadelphia. I'm Joey Pasco in the booth with Matthias Hunt and Seth Zulinski and his Reanimator deck. We're going to try to get things going quickly against Jack Wang and his Maverick deck before Jack has any sort of interaction.
Well, this is the kind of hand that Jack would love to have in another matchup. We just saw him defeat very handily Chris Bakula in the semifinals on the back of, Mother of Runes into Gaddock Teague. These sorts of spells, maybe not Gaddock Teague so much, but these are really good draws against some other decks.
Mm-hmm.
There's some decks that really can't beat Mother of Runes into Gaddock Teague. Ones that are, but that's not the case at all here for Seth Zulinski's, for Seth's hand. He doesn't actually care about Mother Runes at all. He doesn't need to kill any of Jack's creatures. He just needs to kill Jack.
So it's turn 2. Seth played around that wasteland using leaving the Scalding Tarn open until end of Jack's turn, and he's fetched up an Underground Sea. He's going to cast Entomb here, and
this is actually the end of end step of Jack's turn, I believe.
Sorry, on his second turn here, he's going to end up, I believe, reanimating that Gristlebrand. Sorry about that. Yeah, looks like there he's got actual Reanimate. He may even have Exhume, which of course is a lot less painful. Okay, he's going to draw for his turn. It is another Scalding Tarn. He's going to play that. And it looks like, no, he does not have Exhume. He does have Reanimate. So, Reanimate, targeting Gristlebrand. Resolved Gristlebrand. Going to take that huge chunk out of Seth's life total. But I don't think that's really that big of a deal to Seth.
All right, so
I don't think he's at 1 though.
He's down to 11. And this thing, well,
wasn't that big of a
remember,
chunk.
Maverick is one of the few decks that has a way to interact with those cards once it's resolved. He does play Swords to Plowshares.
Yeah.
Granted, Seth has his hand plus the 7 cards on top of his deck to find a Force of Will or some way to answer Swords if it happens.
So there you see the Swords to Plowshares from Jack Wang on turn 2.
Doesn't even need to activate Gristlebrand.
Yeah, so I'm going to counter, and Jack says, all right, we're going to game 2. And Seth, in a blistering fashion, as the deck is capable of, turn 2 Gristlebrand and turn 3 Scoop. I guess it was actually Jack's second turn Scoop there on the Swords. Force. Okay, you got an answer for my answer, I guess.
All right. So that we're gonna bring you back into the booth here. Seth Zulinski so far 5-0 on the play, 0-2 on the draw in our top 8. Remember, he has not been defeated in a match largely due to how powerful his deck has been on the play. It might be Jack Wang's gonna have to win game 2 if he wants to get one more stab at the deck. But before we go back to game 2, we are gonna do our final viewer question of the weekend.
Yeah, so we're gonna give away 1 year of StarCityGames.com premium access. If you've already got premium, you can add a year to it. If you don't have premium, this is a great way to try to get some. We're going to ask you guys a question. You tweet the answer with the hashtag SCGPremium down there, and we're going to choose one correct answer as our winner of 1 year of SCG Premium. So, Grand Prix Miami.
What is our final question?
Grand Prix Miami. Pretty big deal. We've mentioned it several times, and I've mentioned this several times. We've got a very special guest coming to Grand Prix Miami.
Yeah, we're looking for, so we do have we mentioned yesterday that we had or actually this morning trivia that we had a lot of artists coming to Grand Prix Miami, but in specific we have one feature artist who actually hasn't made an appearance at a US Grand Prix event before.
Yeah.
So we're looking for what artist is making his first appearance at a US Magic event at GP Miami. Remember, that's 6 days from today. This coming Saturday.
Yeah, all the information for Grand Prix Miami, including possibly the answer to that question, is can be found at magicgp.com.
All right, so go ahead and tweet your answer to that question. Make sure you put hashtag SCGPremium on that answer, and at the end of the finals, we will announce one winner of a year's worth of Star City Games Premium.
So we'll have 2 winners. We'll have the winner of this match, winner of the premium.
All right.
Yeah. So let's go back to the match. I'm going to take a look at some sideboards here as the players are looking at sideboards, and we've kind of been peeking at Jack's sideboard throughout this top 8, kind of as we've seen Seth rumble through his first few opponents, and we saw Jack, of course, the first one to reach the finals. Trying to look and see who would Jack rather face, the Shardless Bug deck or the Reanimator deck, and I think if I were Jack, I wanted the Shardless Bug deck because of just these kinds of situations this Reanimator deck is capable of.
These kind of situations. On top of that, the seeding worked out. Like we said, that Jack was an overall 2 seed, got to be on the play in every matchup except for this one, where he's 1 versus 2 in this matchup. This is the one matchup where he has to win on the draw.
Yeah. So Seth has won every game in the top 8 that he's been on the play.
Yeah, and most of them, from the ones we watched, were not particularly close.
No, they weren't. It didn't seem like too much. It was usually a very quick Griselbrand followed by a very quick scoop 'em up, and so that said, he has lost every game he's been on the draw. So this, if the rest of the top 8 is any indication, this is Jack Wang's game to win, and Jack is obviously going to have to break serve, as you mentioned, and win the next game as well to win this match.
Right, so the first one's the easy one, and if he can get this game 2, then his reward is he gets to try to win a game 3.
Exactly. Now, Seth could, of course, break convention as well and say, you know what, just because I'm on the draw doesn't mean my deck isn't capable of winning.
Yeah.
Being on the play certainly helps, but being on the draw, I'm still a powerful deck. I can still do the same things. It's just a matter of you actually getting to play your disruption a little bit quicker. And if you don't have the disruption, see, that's the thing with the previous 2 opponents Seth has faced in the top 8. They've had some disruption in the form of counter spells.
Right, so Seth can play without fear of counter spells. Because Jack Wang's on the play, what Jack can do here is he has the ability, his hate cards, for example, we talked about Scavenging Ooze, we talked about, cards like Scavenging Ooze, cards like Thalia, he'll get a chance to land them before... he'll get a chance to land them before at least he's dead. That game, as we saw, Seth, did the turn 1 Entomb, turn 2 Exhume, or turn 2...
turn 2 Reanimate.
Turn 2 Reanimate. Could be Reanimate, could be Exhume, could be Animate Dead. The turn 2 Griselbrand on the play, because of how the curve of Jack's deck works, really he had the only card that he could have had there, which was...
Swords to Plowshares.
Swords to Plowshares, but just not enough.
Yeah, Seth had an answer for that in the form of a Force of Will. And didn't even need to activate the Griselbrand to draw the cards. It was just the threat of Griselbrand was enough to cause Jack to scoop after that Swords to Plowshares failed to resolve.
Yeah, I won. I actually should comment. It wasn't a 1-2. He pondered the first turn. He went turn 2 Entomb, turn 3 win.
Wasn't that a ponder?
I believe he pondered on the first turn.
I thought he just went Scalding Tarn go, and then
because Jack had a chance to play the Mother of Runes. I believe, or maybe no, maybe you're right. Maybe it was.
So
I think it was
Scalding Tarn go. Jack Wang says turn 1 Mother of Runes, end of turn crack. Yeah, make
Griselbrand,
Entomb Griselbrand, untap, play another Scalding Tarn, reanimate Griselbrand,
right?
And then he had on Jack's turn he untapped.
Right. So at that point, the only card Jack can have is Swords to Plowshares, and really, it's not enough in this situation. So if Seth can pull off those hands on the play, there's really nothing Jack's deck can do about it.
Now, even in that situation, say Jack goes, turn 1 Mother of Runes, turn 2 Thalia, on the play. So he goes turn 1 Mother of Runes, Seth says turn 1 Scalding Tarn, turn 2 Thalia.
If it's Entomb Reanimate, it's still going to work.
Right.
Because he does the Entomb in response to Thalia, reanimates.
Exactly.
The thing is that Seth has, because Reanimator has a lot of redundancy, there's a lot of different cards that do that.
Right.
It could be, for example, instead of Entomb, he has Careful Study, in which case... Jack gets a little more things to work with. More importantly, instead of Reanimate, it's Animate Dead or Exhume. In that case, Thalia has stopped that card from happening and gives Jack the window to establish, a Deathrite Shaman or a Scavenging Ooze.
The other thing that's fairly relevant here is the mana base for the Reanimator deck. Just 15 lands. He's got 4 Underground Sea, 2 Island, 2 Swamp, and then 7 fetch lands. So what that means is he's a little wasteland proof, but he's gonna kind of handicap himself if he has to tutor up. If he decides he wants to play around wasteland and searches up, say, an island for a Careful Study, and now can't cast a reanimation spell because he doesn't have access to black.
Well, what we've seen is he's playing 15 lands, and this is actually a different concept than most deck building decisions. He's playing 15 lands because we've seen Seth has no intention of letting this game go past turn 2.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to go past turn 2, you don't really need more than 2 lands in your opener. Yeah. In that sense, it's interesting because when your games are going that fast, you actually count Lotus Petal as a land. Because he is playing 4 Lotus Petals. In a sense, he's a 19-land deck. He's really only... If you only tap your lands once during the course of a game, well, Lotus Petal is pretty much a land, right?
Yeah. That's a good point. And this is kind of one of the features of this sort of Reanimator deck. It tends to play very few lands, 15 to 17 I've seen 17 lands in the 0 Lotus Petal versions. Versions that don't play even Dark Rituals.
So I remember my first experience with this version of Reanimator. This is right after they'd printed a bunch of Praetors, and they'd printed, Gristlebrand, so some of the most really biggest, baddest creatures in the form in Magic. I remember I played it on Star City Legacy Open. It was the first Legacy Open I ever played with. I was playing Elf combo. I remember my opponent going, okay, Underground, there was Underground Sea go. I was like, oh, okay, well, I have my good turn one play. Like Forest, Land, or Elves go. And the guy's like, oh, all right, end step, Entomb, untap, animate dead on Elishnorn. And I was thinking, he's like, well, pause. I'm not sure. I remember that's when I was like, so this Reanimator deck, I kind of feel like I shouldn't be playing creatures in this format.
Yeah.
Like I played a Land War Elves, and it felt a lot worse than what my opponent was doing.
Yeah. I think the first person I saw doing well with the current iteration of the deck, but still pre-Gristlebrand, it was Jin Gataxias at that point, was Sam Stoddard, who of course now works for Wizards of the Coast in R&D. Sam Stoddard, I believe, maybe top 8'd a Legacy event with a Jin Gataxias version of Reanimator. So we're underway here. Jack Wang has the turn 1 Deathrite Shaman.
This is the best card he can have on the play because it does interact, well, unless Seth has the turn 1 Gristlebrand.
And it's possible he does. He mulligan to 6 though. That is something.
You don't need too many cards when you have Entomb, Exhume, Lotus Petal, or Tomb Reanimate, Lotus Petal, land.
So Seth on 6 cards has now played Lotus Petal and played a Swamp.
Oh, and he has he has the whole thing.
It looks like Seth is just filthy.
Well, normally the turn 1 Deathrite Shaman's pretty good here. I was going to say, the Deathrite Shaman will be down in times that Seth can't reanimate a Gristlebrand turn. But no, Seth...
Entomb Gristlebrand. Cut my deck to
exactly.
whatever 7 cards you want me to draw in a minute, because I'm going to go ahead and reanimate Gristlebrand on turn 1. What's funny is when Seth mulligan, I saw him, he looks at his 7 and he just like shakes his head like, oh, this hand's horrible.
Oh my
I guess compared to that, yeah.
Well, all right, and Jack Wang has
an answer.
Has a Caracas.
Okay, so we're going to see how things go, Jack, with an answer.
Caracas is also, so Jack Wang's draw here is perfect, first of all, which I think is the funny part about this. Okay. Because if it was Swords to Plowshares, Seth would just draw 7 cards and probably counter it and then go and kill him. So this is an uncounterable answer to Gristlebrand. And, I mean, okay, maybe not complete answer. Seth still can get a lot of cards off this. He actually can't, because Seth went to 11, Seth can't draw 7 cards. So if he draws 7 cards, well, Seth put 2 instants and sorceries in the graveyard, and Jack sure has a black mana.
Yeah.
4 is not a very good life total to go to right now. I think Seth's just going to have to let him bounce the Gristlebrand.
Yeah, you're right. This is the perfect answer. And, so far, at first it looked like Seth was about to break convention and actually win a game where he was on the draw.
It's just not fated to be.
That's okay. I mean, we don't know where this game is going, but Jack has certainly drawn a set of answers to what Seth has. And Seth is going to go ahead and play Live Dangerously, and he's going to draw 7. He's going to fall to 4 here.
When a deck is as fast as Reanimator, we touched on this in the top 8 when he was playing Matthew Szabo, so few cards in your opponent's deck matter. If the game's over on turn 2, for example, first of all, every card in your deck that costs 3 or more is not a card. It's like this matchup is determined by very few things. Did you have this Caracas? Did you have this turn 1 Deathrite Shaman?
Yeah, so turn 1 Deathrite, turn 2 Caracas to deal with the Gristlebrand. He passes back to Seth, so Seth at 4 life. With 1 swamp in play, facing down a Deathrite. He's got a basic island, so he's wasteland proof right now.
Like Seth facing the turn 3 kill from Jack. You see, Seth cracked a fetch land, then he 14'd himself, and
that's pretty much.
It's very possible that he's going to just lose on turn 3 to that Deathrite Shaman.
So he's going to try to mount some sort of defense. We saw he has Elishnorn in his hand.
Yeah, and I was going to say the card which he needs to be able to get here is Elishnorn, and he kind of needs to show and tell it into play off some Lotus Petals. There's some really not good ways he can do this. If he puts it in the graveyard, he buys himself a turn because the Deathrite will exile the Elishnorn. But
yeah, it's not really what he wants to be doing with it.
Deathrite into Caracas on the play is just a great hand for Maverick. On the draw, not enough. Right. To be fair.
So it looks like Seth, after resolving a Brainstorm, is going to cast Entomb.
And so I'm curious to see what he's going for.
Yeah, it's Tidespout Tyrant.
So yeah, Tidespout Tyrant, a card from Dissension. So he's from Ravnica, but he's been in Ravnica for a while.
Yeah, he's been hanging out there. He's kind of kind of a veteran.
So it's interesting. In the day and age of creatures, mythic rares and creatures being better than they've ever been before, there is one creature from the olden days that has still managed to stay around. That's Tidespout Tyrant. It's a 5/5. Whenever you play any spell, you bounce a permanent. You have a boomerang.
Yeah.
Because he plays this, it's kind of like an Echoing Truth. It's a catch-all for anything.
And you see Jack says, I don't care about your Tidespout Tyrant. I'm just going to go ahead and remove something and then untap and kill you. So
this Death Rate's still in play. I'm going to use it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to use it, and I'm going to untap, and I'm going to use it. So that's pretty much how it goes. So Jack Wang sticking with the script.
Interestingly,
winning the game that he is on the play, where Seth losing the game where he is on the draw, despite having a turn 1 Gristlebrand. But, I mean, yeah.
Reanimator is quite the deck. So, Jack has earned himself the opportunity to try to win one of these on the draw. And, interestingly, when you're playing against Reanimator, so if you were to make a pie chart, I guess, of how the games with Reanimator are decided. Well, first of all, you'd say 20% is to mulligans. Did the Reanimator deck have it? And then another probably 20% is to matchups. Can the other deck even really do anything here? And then it's like 50% of it is sideboarding and mulliganing. And then I think like that last 10% sliver is, oh yeah, how did the game actually go?
Right.
It's like once you both keep your once you both correctly sideboard and you both keep your 7s, it's almost just like you're letting the decks run. You're putting the decks on autopilot. As we saw there was virtually no. Jack's decision was to play a land, cast Deathrite Shaman, play Karakas, tap it. Those are the only decisions he made in the entire game.
Right.
And really, I don't think any of those decisions are even very debatable. But what he does do is, it was in the mulliganing, it was in the deck construction, it was in the sideboarding.
Exactly. And it's interesting too because one way or another, that's one of the reasons it's kind of fun to watch these combo decks. Is a lot of times these matches are over very quickly. If the combo deck tries to go off and execute, if it succeeds, well, they win very quickly. If it fails, it fizzles, it's usually like, well, I'm out. Like, I don't really have much more to do. Seth there, obviously Jack did actually kill him. It wasn't a scoop, exactly. But, it was a situation where he kind of fizzled. He did get the Gristlebrand into play. Jack was able to disrupt it, and, things moved on. We're 20 minutes in, and this is counting, I believe, nearly 10 minutes before they even started playing game 1. Right. Yeah. It was before game 1. I think we started that counter. So, it's been very quick match so far, and I imagine this game 3 will go just as quickly, whether or not it's Seth getting the Gristlebrand or the giant dude into play very quickly and keeping Jack from really being able to do anything, or if it's Jack keeping Seth's guys off the board with Swords of Plowshares or Karakas, or keeping Deathrite or using Deathrite Shaman to keep them out of the graveyard and out of reach of the plethora of reanimation spells.
What I find interesting here is that there are some cards that Jack has access to. He has stuff like cards like Bazooka Bug. What we haven't seen out of Seth Zulinski's deck yet is, remember, sometimes he doesn't always put the creatures into the graveyard using Entomb. Sometimes it is Careful Study, in which case he is a little more vulnerable to graveyard hate.
Yeah, and but he does also have access to those 4 show and tells, 2 in the board and 2 in the main. So what the cards that Jack can put into play are much less threatening than the ones that Seth can. So show and tell would do pretty good work here as well. Still, even that said, I think show and tell, even if you were to show and tell Gristlebrand into play in that last game with Jack's combination of cards, it wasn't going to really pan out well for Seth either way. So, even drawing 7 and not having taken a ton from the Gristlebrand.
Yeah, exactly. There aren't too many options available to him. So, and then this is, we said the first part, deck construction. That, that sliver of the pie is already done. The next one is going to be mulliganing decisions.
Yeah, so it looks like we're at that phase of the game, mulliganing, and both players keep their 7, and we're underway. Game 3 of the finals of the StarCityGames.com Legacy Open Series. Coming to you guys from Philadelphia, I'm Joey Pasco in the booth with Matthias Hunt, and Seth Zulinski on the play is going to have a turn 1 Ponder, and Ponder, he doesn't like what he sees. He's going to shuffle and draw a random card. So Seth and his Reanimator deck have rumbled through opponents when Seth has been on the play so far in this top 8. Jack Wang, keeping to the script, wins the game where he is on the play there in game 2. So we're all tied up.
So first you think, Ponder's a pretty weak opening from Seth Zulinski, except You see the rest of his hand. Okay, see Lotus Petal, Reanimate, Force of Will, Force of Will. You're like, oh gosh, there is 1 and 2 from this being a Gristlebrand.
Yeah, look, I think that top card is an Inkwell Leviathan. And Jack leading on the turn 1 Deathrite Shaman again. That's a good opener. He does not have the Caracas that I can see this time.
Yeah, Seth decides not to Force of Will there. What he needed was a second, I believe, was a second black mana source.
And he's got a Pithing Needle. And I imagine he names Deathrite Shaman.
I mean, it's got to be Deathrite Shaman. That card's pretty hard for him to beat right now.
Jack has a Thoughtseize in his hand, and I believe we're going to see it here.
And, well, the Deathrite Shaman's going to go ahead and turn sideways.
Yeah, I mean, he's a 1-2. He does damage when he attacks.
And this is probably the most interactive game we've seen so far. And Jack really, remember we said the cards that mattered were the Deathrite Shaman, the Scavenging Ooze, Thalia, and maybe even Gaddock Teague.
Right. Thoughtseize as well can help disrupt things, and Jack does have access to it. So Seth now plays Lotus Petal and taps the island.
Land for Lotus Petal.
For Lotus Petal.
And this is actually looking pretty good for Jack Wang here. He does have the Thoughtseize. He has somewhat of a clock that he's building up.
Yeah, he's going to attack for 3 here with the Thalia and the Deathrite Shaman.
Well, the clock's going to continue to get quicker because, he's just going to play a creature every turn.
Yeah, there's a Knight of the Reliquary, and Seth, I believe, is... He looked like he was thinking about Force of Will.
Yeah, he was thinking about Force of Willing, and, because that Knight of the Reliquary is going to be a pretty fast clock. It looks like he decided against that play. The danger of not doing the Force of Will play is Jack may not use the Knight of the Reliquary to attack. He may use it to get himself a black mana source and to Thoughtseize Seth Zulinski.
So land from Seth and go. So this is one of those games that it looks like it's shifting into Jack's favor as more and more lands are placed on the battlefield. Human is the creature type named for that Cavern of Souls. He does have a Bayou now, and he is going to cast a Thoughtseize, paying an extra 1 because of that Thalia.
The fact that he drew the black mana source, he actually has double Thoughtseize in his hand. He's going to be able to Thoughtseize twice this turn with the help of Knight of the Reliquary. It'll be very helpful to him because if he's, right now he knows that Seth has a card worth protecting, Jack's going to probably take another one.
Yeah, so Force of Will, removing Force of Will, deals with that first Thoughtseize. And, you see Knight of the Reliquary is going to go ahead and sacrifice that forest after adding a single mana floating, and he's going to find, looks like a Windswept Heath, which he's going to immediately crack and find a black source, which he's going to be able to use to cast that Thoughtseize along with that floating mana.
Yeah, what it looks like happened here was that Seth Zulinski kept a hand that was one type of card short of having the full combo, and it looks like he's really paying the price for it. Jack was able to get his engine running and enough disruption. We see Inkwell Leviathan, Reanimate Force of Will. Seth offering Inkwell Leviathan.
Look at he almost took it.
Yes, no, he was like, wait, hold a second.
Yeah, I'll take this guy, this Reanimate guy.
Now, interestingly, Seth decided to let him have the Reanimate as opposed to just Force of Will pitching Inkwell Leviathan, which I'm surprised by, actually.
Yeah?
Yeah, well, there actually aren't too many plays that Seth has left. Now that the Knight of the Reliquary is online, Seth knows how much trouble he's in. Even if he makes a Gristlebrand, Knight of the Reliquary can go find Caracas. It's likely that none of the legendary creatures will be good enough.
Yeah, and I wonder that's why he kept the Inkwell Leviathan rather than pitching
That's
it.
the way to win the game.
So he's going to ponder here. He has to pay 2 for it. And despite having a Pithing Needle on Deathrite Shaman, Jack Wang with several disruptive creatures. Well, really, it's the Thalia and then the Knight being able to not be disruptive, but actually tutor up lands that can kind of turn on Jack's disruption. So Seth draws off of that ponder. After shuffling, he's going to get a random card off the top. It's Show and Tell, and it costs 4, and so he's not going to be able to do that until next turn. He's at 12 right now. That's a 4/4 Knight, I believe. So
yeah, it has two lands in the graveyard. It's interesting, even at this point, he's far enough behind that it doesn't even really matter what monster he makes. Jack will probably, off the Show and Tell, Jack probably has enough creatures that he'll still be ahead on the board.
So we're going to see Knight of the Reliquary and Thalia. Oh, all 3 attacking, I think. It is a 5/5 Knight.
Thanks to, yeah.
So I think Seth is now at 4.
Yeah, he attacked with the Deathrite Shaman instead of... He first thought he was going to hold it back so that he could deal extra damage by exiling a card. I think instead he realized that he'd rather just be using...
Well, he couldn't because Pithing Needle.
All right, Pithing Needle's on Deathrite Shaman. So yeah, he thought about it and realized, wait, I can't use the card. Seth's going to cast Show and Tell, and both of them are going to bring something to Show and Tell. Seth brings...
Jack has nothing.
Inkwell Leviathan.
Inkwell Leviathan is Seth's play.
And that, with Seth Zulinski at 4, that is not going to be enough.
Yeah, it's a big blocker, but yeah, he needs. You see, it's 7-11, open all night. Iron Walk, Trample, Shroud. It's just not enough. I mean, he can block the biggest guy, and he's just going to take all the rest, and that's going to kill him. So I think Jack Wang with Maverick.
Does Seth have an answer? He's going to block. Oh, which one to block?
And there it is. Jack Wang with Maverick takes down Seth Zulinski here in the finals. 3 games, 2 games to 1 in 3 games here in the finals. Jack Wang, our champion.
Yeah, Seth Zulinski.